All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Stefan. I'm here with Laura Gisborne. I'm so excited to be doing our interview today for the Soul Profit Circle. And today we're talking about how to infuse philanthropy and into your daily life and in your business as well. I think so many of us are thinking about how can I support the greater good? How can I make a difference? If you have a business, even beyond the business, or how can I infuse this? How can we demystify the process? How can we do something now versus someday when? Right, we were talking about this a little earlier. So a little bit about me. I'm Priscilla Stefan, intuitive business strategist. I work with conscious women entrepreneurs to help them build soul-aligned businesses that are rich in meaning, purpose, and profit. And I use a tool called the Akashic Records to dive deep into the soul of you and your business. I met Laura a couple years ago when I spoke on her stage here in California on soul leadership and soul leadership archetypes and kind of leading from the soul. And when I attended her event, I was blown away by how much she is committed to and really is the embodiment of philanthropy, of doing good and of doing it now versus someday. And she has incredible tips to help us navigate the question of how do I contribute to the greater good in a way that's meaningful, that's easy, that's a natural extension of who I am. And sometimes it's not just about money, it's about our time, our gifts. And so I'm very glad to have her here as our guest. Laura has been in business for quite a while in many different instances. She hosts an event here in California. She's hosting one in April 12th through the 14th in Costa Mesa called Limitless Women. So if you want to come, we can share more about that. And so I'm really excited to share about this topic that will be shared within the Soul Profit Circle. Laura, you may decide to share this, and I'll certainly be sharing it with my community because I think it's a really hot topic. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a good timing, and it's always a good time to be with you, Priscilla. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So Soul Profit, as it was given to me in the Akashic Records, is a mindset of consciousness, abundance, choice, and possibility. And I think really opening the space to create possibilities and joyful possibilities with money, with the greater good, with joy, and finding easy ways to contribute, do good, make a difference, and not lose ourselves in the process is definitely a possibility. So maybe perhaps share with us a little bit, Laura, about your background. Also, did you always have this spark of like the philanthropy of doing good? When did it maybe amplify or get ignited in you, and how did it become a priority? Because when I think of you, I always think of you leading with that. And I'm like, gosh, sometimes I'm like, Maslow hierarchy of needs. And then someday, I'll get to that. So if you can share, that would be great.
Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. And I'm just really grateful to spend some time with you because it's been too long since we've connected. It's just such a pleasure to see you.
Yes.
And, it's an interesting journey, and I love that you brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I'm not sure everyone is really familiar with that. But basically, at the core of that work is that there's a pyramid, and we all kind of start where we start, and we're in survival mode, and we're doing the best we can. So we move up, and then we get a little more aware of each other and society, and then we kind of move into a place where we know a little bit more about ourselves. And the work that you do that's so insightful, Priscilla, is helping people get really clear on their purpose and how they can have that be an expression in their business. So it's just really like the highest level of self-expression is having a business that is actually where you get to be in the place that you're meant to be. So it's really gorgeous work. And I think for me personally, I spent most of my childhood and my early adult years really in the survival mode. It wasn't, I was born into a family where philanthropy was not something that was a conversation because everybody around me was really just trying to get by. And I know that we're all doing the best we can with what we know, but the idea of giving back and contribution wasn't really in my family of origin. However, I had a babysitter, a woman named Barbara Wiesinger. She's still with us today. And she's an amazing, amazing role model for not only myself, but so many other children that she cared for. Even when my parents weren't able to pay her, she still took good care of me. And it really was like a soul mother to me. And she was a very devout Christian. And her example was always one of giving. It was just everywhere, every time. And she had very little of her own financial resources, but there was always more than enough. There was always joy in her home. There was always abundance. And and the freedom of this can-do attitude. You know, I remember her like having a hairdryer break. This is such a strange memory, but it comes to mind right now. Being at her house as a young girl and having the hairdryer break and having her get out her screwdriver and just take it apart and just figure out how to fix it. It wasn't like that couldn't be done, right? It was just like, that was just one funny little episode, but she always just infused everyone around her with joy. And I feel like she's one of the greatest role models of my life. So as I started moving into my businesses and into my work, and I don't know how much you want me to go into all of that, I feel like those seeds were planted in me, you know, as a young girl. And I was blessed to have this woman as a role model to really infuse me with what was possible.
How old were you, more or less, you know?
Well, I started being with her when I was 5.
Wow.
And then she babysat me until I was 12. And then my parents didn't want me to, they didn't want to pay anymore. So then I was 12 and my little brother was 5 at the time. So I took care of him, and actually was 6. So, you know, I was old enough then to babysit, but we've always stayed in touch. I just saw her actually when I was in Miami in December. Yeah. So sweet.
So she planted those seeds. And so share with people that don't know you, a little bit about your background, because you've had some really successful and diverse businesses from what I understand in terms of your evolution. What ignited this spark to be in business or to?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, gosh, it's such a great question. So there's really there was no really frame of reference. Barbara wasn't a highly educated person. Nobody in my family had ever been to college, but the message was like, if you could just get there, if you could just get an education, this would be a key that would change things for you. And so I knew, and I worked hard in school, and I was a good student, and I was really trying to do my very best. And I did well, right? And then I went to college, put myself through college, and I went to law school. And there was just this inkling for me that this wasn't necessarily the right path, that it was something that I was kind of like, if I could just do this, all the pain in the world would go away, right? If I would just have this secret sauce. And then there was a deeper desire inside. And as I started to learn about the law of attraction is what we call it today, but back in the day, you know, religious science and Louise Hayes, and the idea that we could science of mind, that things could be different, right? That we actually could create a different environment for ourselves than our past was really kind of a new awareness for me. And in the business arena, I married into a family business, a restaurant that was owned by my husband and his family. And we all did every job. And when I thought about being a mom, I didn't want to work, 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. It was just crazy. We lived there, and if anybody's been in the restaurant business, it could be one of those like all encompassing, 7-day-a-week lives. And so I looked at how could I have a restaurant business, but have it not be like that. So then we opened up 2 more restaurants called Field of Greens, and those were lunch places, and we were only open for lunch. And people thought, how do you do that? But we had out of that business a catering business, and so we did a lot of corporate catering, and we were really productive and focused on that niche. And it gave me time to be off on the weekends, gave me time to be with my children in the evenings. It was really, really lovely. And long story, I'm going to take you through 9 companies in 30 years, but there's a lot of different things. So from those industries, from the restaurant business, we went into real estate. From real estate, went into retail, and each of my businesses kind of gave birth to another business. So it was like there'd be a place where I would see a need in the marketplace, and then I would say, oh gosh, okay, well, let me just go and try to fill that one next. And one of the businesses that we had that was a lot of fun was a wine tasting room. And we were selling housewares and t-shirts. And when I went to market, and I'd never been to market, but that's where you go to buy the housewares and stuff, I found all these cool clothes, and they were clothes that I wanted to buy, I wanted to wear, and I wanted to buy them half price, right? So we ordered a bunch of clothes, and we sold $140,000 of clothing in the first 6 months out of our wine tasting room. So I was like, oh, clearly there's a need for a boutique in this town, right? This is in Sedona back in the day. So we rented the space next door and opened up a clothing store. So it's kind of like one business led to another business, led to another business. And there was a place of really following that understanding, that knowing of like, where's the need? How could I serve? And that always comes back to the question, how do I serve, right? Whether it's the for-profit business or the nonprofit, because all along while I was doing my private sector businesses, I was working as a volunteer. So it was like 2 separate worlds for many years. And then when we came to what we do today with Limitless Women, it became one business that's integrated. with profits for purpose, right? Which I know is so much a part of your message and your mission, is to really, again, have purposeful businesses and giving back and profitable businesses. So just another place that you and I align.
Yes. And I'm just curious, although there were 3 R's, real estate, retail, and restaurants, coincidentally, you know, what gave you the confidence? I mean, I can see, like, I think many of us entrepreneurs, we can see some of these gaps, but we're like, oh, this is, you know, I wouldn't dare, I don't know anything. What was like that impetus to say, oh, I can do this?
Yeah.
So different.
Right. Well, it's so interesting. It never occurred to me. I guess the context of that is that my childhood was really difficult. You know, I had this beautiful angel woman that was mentoring me and a role model for me in my early formative years. My teenagers were there was a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. It was not fun. And I was in an environment where it was kind of like I was on my own, you know, and my mother was a teenager when she had me. I think you know this story, but I give the context of just really having compassion for everybody doing the best they could. There was this place where I really felt like I was on my own. So as I kept achieving things like getting into college and getting myself through college, there was these places where if someone else was doing it, I knew it could be done, right? So it was like, if I'm going to go into this business and follow this calling, all I have to do is find somebody else who's doing it, right? So being in the restaurant business is not that complicated. It's time consuming and it takes a lot of love and attention to do it well, but clearly other people are in the restaurant business, right? So every business that I had, there was a role modeling that I could follow, right? And that's you know, Tony Robbins' work is really like model the people that you want to see, you know, you want to borrow from their success, right? Like learn that. So every business I could model someone else's. So I didn't feel any pressure that I didn't know. And then when I started this business, my invitations started coming in when you come and speak. And I wasn't a speaker and I wasn't an author and it wasn't something I was looking to do. But they kept coming. And it was interesting, Priscilla, is that they were always around philanthropy. They were always global invitations and they were always women's groups. And so I was like, what, you know, I was just listening for the synchronicity of that. And so it was like, will you come to China and lead a breakout session at a women's university? Will you come to India and lead a session in this spiritual consciousness for entrepreneurs? And I'm like, who are these people and how do they find me? So strange, but I kept praying about it. You know what I mean? That's my understanding. I kept praying about it. I kept meditating. And I said, you know, if I'm going to go out in the world and leave my home and my family and this environment that we've created, you know, please show me how to be used, right? How to do the best service that I can do with the knowledge that I have and the years of experience I've had as an entrepreneur, along with my heart for wanting to give back. And I think that the place of that came from my own desire to heal, right? You know, I started as a volunteer for CASA, working with, as a court-appointed advocate for foster children. And I think because there was so much pain and violence and dysfunction in my own childhood, I probably was trying to heal myself in being in service to other children that were in that experience, right? So it's kind of like that piece where one, again, led to another. That led me to family outreach, and then it led me to be on the school board. And, you know, there was all these parallel things that were happening while I was doing my private sector development.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And definitely I can already hear, I'll just recap some of the threads, you know, that there was, you know, you had a role model, you led by example, right? There was mentoring that was happening, that you do have a spiritual practice of connecting to yourself and asking for guidance, praying, meditation, staying receptive to opportunities. You also said yes once things you were like, wow, but okay, it feels right. I'll follow that energy. Yes. Yes. I loved also how you said, you know, if somebody else is succeeding, why can't I? I just need to learn the nuts and bolts of that. You know, it's
right.
And
it can be done.
It can be done. And also, how can I serve, or how can I be a contribution? And looking for where there's a need and how you can fill it, right? And that's so much a part of entrepreneurship. It's also part of just paying attention, sometimes, and staying aware and waking. So these are all so beautiful. And also volunteering, which can be a great way to just start somewhere. It doesn't have to be a career. It doesn't have to be this big thing, just one step, you know, just explore or see what calls to you, right? Whether it is related to some past pain or something that just feels different and exciting. So thank you. That's so good. So as you were navigating this, how did I'd love to just kind of switch into the relationship to money, right? Because I think philanthropy also speaks to abundance mindset, scarcity mindset. I'm not ready. I don't know enough. I don't have enough. I don't know where to start. If I tithe to this, how am I going to, sometimes we're starting out in business, or we go through a rough patch, or I've got to give for retirement. Like, I got to take care of me before them later, me first. So how was your relationship to money, and how did it evolve perhaps as you were going through this journey of philanthropy, and
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's an interesting thing because it comes to me in stories. It comes to me in different experiences where I was without. And what it looks like, I think, for most of the women that I meet and most of the entrepreneurs, is that they think, well, gosh, that sounds so nice. Maybe someday I could do that too. And what I know to be true from my own experience and from many other people that I have the joy of being friends with and connected with, is that giving isn't something that happens when you get there. It's actually the giving that causes the growing. It's kind of that stretch. When we stretch ourselves to do something or follow our heart or follow a lead that we just don't even know how it's going to unfold. And yet we become expanded. Even if it doesn't work out the way we think it's going to, we become expanded. We don't really ever go back. We don't contract. So there's something in giving that causes the growing. And I'm in the inquiry right now and really working on this for my third book, because now I am an author.
Yes, I remember.
How to really, what's the brain science? What's happening? I think you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started the interview. What's happening in the collective consciousness? You have a very evolved listenership and viewership. And so there's a consciousness around life and business in your community. And we, as people who think this way, might think a little differently, but I feel that the whole planet is being raised, right? The vibration is being raised right now. You would let me know if you feel that as well. But
I agree.
That place of, this consciousness of connectivity and how we are all really so much more alike than we are different. And I think for people born in developed nations, it's easy to lose sight of how affluent we actually are. Do you know what I mean? Even in my darkest days, and being sexually molested and being in so much violence and so unhappy as a child, I always had a roof over my head. I always had fresh water. Didn't have to worry about that, right? We didn't always have the best meals going on, but nobody was starving. And I think when I think about what's happening for the rest of the world meaning billions of people that live on less than $3 a day, it's a fascinating paradigm to actually think about that. When we're in business and we're trying to strive and have more and do more and be more, we really already are more than enough. So it shows up for us sometimes around, I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time. And actually what's underneath that is really what I believe is a limiting belief that we're not enough. And we really recognize that we're really divinely guided and divinely supported, and that we've had the opportunity to be in this conversation. This is a very luxurious conversation to have, right? How do I scale my company? How do I grow more? How do I impact more people with my work? What a luxury. We're not having to figure out how to go get water or how to put a roof over our head. We're actually figuring out how do we actually grow and expand? And I believe that giving is a big part of that, So that's just.
I love that. Thank you so much. What would you say? I have been guilty of this. I think sometimes as mystics or light workers, we naturally give, sometimes painfully to the place of overgiving, where we can get a little bit burned out, maybe even resentful, or stop trusting ourselves. Well, I'm already overgiving. If I go and volunteer and help, then maybe I'm going to just be overgiving too much.
Yeah. Huh? Overextended maybe.
Overextended, exactly. So any tips on navigating, finding those boundaries to get back to, yes, I can give and it can still be nourishing without, taking too much away from me.
Absolutely. Well, I think that you just said the word that I would recommend for anyone, which is healthy boundaries. And so again, most of us that grew up in families of origin where we didn't really have a lot of role modeling for healthy ways of being in relationship to ourselves and others have to learn how to have healthy boundaries. And it's an important lesson. And I feel like when we look at our work, we have to have a good, clean separation. I personally feel that you never lose by giving, but giving in the time frame that feels right for you. And that requires us doing our self-care first. So every woman that I meet that comes to me and says, you know, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough time, I remind her that we all have exactly the same 24 hours in a day. Oprah has the same time, Michelle Obama has the same time, you and I have the same time. How we choose to use it is really the distinction, right? And getting clear about that is vital. So when we look at our calendars, we look at scheduling, being entrepreneurs, because I would imagine most of your clients and most of your followers as well, right? So being entrepreneurs, we have the freedom to structure our time around our priorities. And if we can get our self-care and our filling ourselves up and really filling up our well first as a priority, then we come to our work in a very present way. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's very different to give in your capacity for people that really don't have. And what I mean by that is if you're going to go to a soup kitchen, you're going to volunteer your time, because you just feel like that's something you'd like to do once a month for an hour or two. You'll really create an impact and do something really nice for someone who doesn't have. This is different than when we overgive in our business because we have unhealthy boundaries and we're trying to be liked. Totally different thing. I think when we actually give from a place of generosity, from a place of abundance and overflow, that we feel more invigorated and more enlightened. When we give in our business because we're actually trying to be enough, we're not giving from a place that's clean, right? And you're always so good, Priscilla, in your communication and like really getting clear about this. And it's this place of like appreciation versus expectation, right? That's a Tony Robbins thing I've heard recently on an interview with him, and I loved it. And I thought, what's life like if every day we appreciate what is and appreciate what we're experiencing instead of expecting something that's not? It can shift everything for us energetically.
I could feel that even in my body too, right? Because you're coming from a place of fullness versus, there's what's empty.
Yeah, so save your giving, and I wouldn't say this like to hold back in any way, but in business, be really clear. I mean, I think clarity about your business is vital, right? And really getting clear about who you serve, what they're struggling with, and how you're uniquely qualified to support them. Right. And that's your lane. We call that staying in your lane, right? Yes. When you're actually in your lane. So when other people come, you may generously give them love, attention, but you're not trying to fix something that's not your job to fix, right? And that's a healthy boundary, I think, in business.
I love that very, very much. I want to bring a topic that might not sound so good, but it's something that I feel, and maybe other people feel it too. Okay. It's the giving guilt of not giving, meaning there's a part of me that's, I think even from my teenage years, I always wrote down in my bucket list, I'd like to start a foundation. Wow. But there's also a part of me that just wants to lie on a beach and just be happy and not have to worry, especially with all the news and, especially recently with, it's just easy to either sometimes just want to check out. It's just too much. I can't make a difference. All the reasons why we can't give, we don't want to give. So there's a part of me that wants to give or shoulding myself to give.
Right.
But then there's a part of me that's just, that feels too much. Or going to a soup kitchen, sometimes I'm just going through all the stories and the reasons that we can just talk ourselves out of giving. Sure. Or like, I'm going to go to a soup kitchen. I honestly have told myself, it's not going to matter. If I don't go, someone else will go. And what's really an hour going to really do? Anyway, it's not really going to do much. So if it doesn't feel big, if someone else could do it, why does it really matter? Or if I'm just going to help one person, maybe it could be bigger. So like there can be these messages, weird stories that we give to ourselves of the expectation of what it has to be like or look like, or the magnitude of it for it to mean something.
Right. Right.
Can you help, like any suggestions, and maybe just appreciating, just to do whatever.
I wanted to make sure you had space to really like make sure I got the whole vision.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely be something I've been grappling with, and I think sometimes some variation of the theme might come up for people.
I think it comes up for most people, myself included. Who am I? Is this really going to matter? What does my one little contribution, like maybe I can donate $100. Is that really going to make a difference? So here's what I've learned, because I've been volunteering now for almost 30 years, which is kind of fascinating to me. While I've been in the private sector, I've been volunteering all along. And you just don't know what life you're going to touch, right? You just don't know where somebody is struggling and where a simple act of kindness can make a difference. And I really believe, again, that the gift is in the giving. We actually get more by giving sometimes than the receiver gets. Do you know what I mean? And it's this circle. You've heard me talk about this before, kind of like giving can't happen without receiving. Receiving can't happen without giving. So in order for us to be good givers, we have to also be good receivers. And it's a practice, right? This is the whole thing. It's like that idea of filling up our well. How am I going to do this is a really limiting belief. Instead, saying, who can help me with this? Or how can I be a part of something bigger? I think, again, as mere mortals, we get stuck in our own mind. And the numbers are pretty amazing, Priscilla. And I don't want anybody to quote me on this because I'm not sure I have the statistics exactly correct, but it's something like over 85% of donations to nonprofits are made by lower to middle class people. So it's folks that are making, in the United States, less than $50,000, families combined making less than $50,000 a year, cumulatively make up more than 80% of the actual donations that are made to charity. So it's an interesting paradigm, right, of where is the money actually coming from. And I can just say from my own experience, you had asked me in the very beginning of this interview, where does it come from? I'm really clear that it's a part of me that my soul knows that it was when I really could have been in way worse shape than I was. At one point I was severely anorexic, had very low self-esteem. I lived with a man that beat me on a regular basis. If it hadn't been for other people seeing me when I couldn't see myself, those people were volunteering, if you will, putting their hand out and saying, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. You can get some help. We can have it be different, right? It's like you just never know how your simple act of kindness and generosity can change a life. And that's something I want to remind everybody of. Is like, this giving causes growing paradigm, if we just can actually get out of our own way and actually know that we get to give. There's something about tithing when we talk about, let's say that you had $1 and you gave 10 cents and you still were able to make it on 90 cents. You're kind of giving this message to the universe, to God, to source, that I'm okay. I really appreciate what I have. And that which we appreciate, we get more of. I don't know where that law comes from, but it is a law. It is absolutely the truth in my life, in my relationships, in my health, in my experience, my business, in my money. When I'm actually looking at how much gratitude I can have for what actually is in front of me right now, it starts to expand and grow. Whether that be love, like I said, health, juice, it's just kind of a cool thing to play with. So yeah, it's okay when you don't feel like doing it. Somebody else may do it and somebody else may not. Do you know the numbers for the Hunger Project that we heard from Lynn Twist when she was speaking at Limitless Women? Maybe, I don't know if you were there that day.
I was there, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, when we talk about 40,000 people used to die of hunger in the 1970s every day, most of them under the age of 5. That number has gone down to 16,000, but that's still 16,000 people dying. It's not your job, it's not my job to make it different. But if we each could make a little bit of a contribution to be a part of the solution to the problem, I feel like cumulatively we really can create shift. That's how movements happen, right? That's how rights happen for women, for people of color, for people with sexual orientation. Somebody had to stand up and say, okay, this isn't right for me. I'm going to go ahead and do what I can do. And then another person said, okay, I'm going to join you. And another person said, I'm going to join you. So I feel like, again, it's never really us being fully responsible, but what's a cause we could care about that we could just give a little bit to and see what happens, right? If we all just gave a little bit, beautiful things can happen in the world.
I really appreciate that, gratitude, appreciation, and being that angel. And what came to me was not playing God, right? Because in playing God, we think, oh, well, going into conclusion, or, well, it's not going to work, or it's not going to matter. So what's the point?
Right.
But then there's still that nudge within us that we do want to give, right? And there is, I think, more and more, as you were talking about the collective consciousness, really expanding and evolving, that there is more of an awareness, perhaps even through contrast, first of, how much we can feel divided, or the hate that we can see out in the world. Really, I think that's really a reinforcement of the oneness that we're kind of really awakening to, that there is, like you said, so much more similar than there is different among us, that there is a craving to belong to something greater than ourselves, that is a normal part of being and our soul expression here. And that there are many ways that we can do that in business, in our lives, in our relationships. Who we're being, how we're showing up, right, is already a gift. And being that angel that can be, sometimes just a smile, right? Can just brighten someone's day. So many of us are going through so much in our own inner landscape, in our lives, with our friends. So just, who can I be today in the world that will brighten the world up a little bit, right? It's just sometimes just starting with our lives. That can be, a volunteering, a philanthropy, and then expand out, circle out if you're ready and willing from that place of overflow.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I think about when my children were little, right? They're adults now, but I think about when they were little and when they were getting a little self-absorbed, right? For me, something, right? Because we are is like grown-up kids ourselves. We all have our same days, right? But when they were little, I would just say to them, like, who can you do something nice for today? And it could be me, it could be their dad, it could be, somebody at school, it could be a friend, it could be a teacher, but who can you do something nice for today? And I'm amazed at who they are as adults, right? They're really incredible people. And this little practice of how do I get out of my own way and focus on somebody other than myself actually has us feeling better, right? We stop being obsessed about that which is having us be unhappy, because now we've shifted our perspective to service. And not service because we have to, not service because there's something wrong with us, not service because we're not good enough, but instead because we're actually doing something nice for ourselves when we're doing something nice for somebody else. So it's a really fun, there's so many different ways. You and I talked about this before we got on the call. There's so many different ways to make a difference. And it doesn't have to be, number one, you don't have to do it at all. But if you're feeling a calling, I challenge you to try to ignore it, because it's not going to go away. If you're a person, and listen, when I first started this business of giving back and using our business as a vehicle to fund causes we care about, it was pretty fascinating because I didn't have a lot of role models. I had a lot of role models in philanthropy, people that were like, that was their cause. And I had role models in business for people who are successful in business. And there was also a thing that was starting to percolate in the last probably 3 to 4 years, maybe 5, where it's like socially conscious businesses, but it's strategic philanthropy. So they're giving to get. They're giving so they can look good. They're giving so that they're effective. Mm-hmm. And I have always said, that's not why we give. We're giving because we get to. We get to give. We're not giving to get. That's a different piece, right? So if you don't feel like doing it, take a day off and take care of yourself first. And once you feel good and you feel whole and complete and you really fill up your well, then ask, who can I help today? And it can be very simple. Like, I was telling you when we got on this call, we just bought this house and we have this furniture and we have our furniture and we gave away and we keep giving stuff away. Like, maybe you have stuff you don't need anymore. You'd be amazed at how many people really can use your stuff. Sheets, towels, dishes, clothes you don't wear. There are so many people that just don't have that. So just giving that away, again, something good happens for you because you get to open up your space and open up your closet and you have this new space that's freedom around you and you're getting to serve somebody else. That costs you nothing but a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's where the whole Sparking Joy Marie Kondo can really come into play, right? Just decluttering closets.
What is that? Tell me, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, so Marie Kondo is she wrote this book and now she has a Netflix thing.
I've heard about her.
Yeah,
yes,
the one.
I've never watched it, but I've heard about it.
She's a Japanese lady. I think it's called Marie Kondoing. It's like Kondo.
Okay.
And I watched a couple of her her shows on Netflix, and she's all about sparking joy. So you only keep things in your life. She starts with your closet that spark joy. If it doesn't spark joy, you're giving it away, you're donating. So I've seen tons of posts on Facebook of just all these bags of clothes. Does not spark joy, done. Then you go through shoes, and then you go through the kitchen, and it's just literally joy. It's the filter. If it doesn't spark joy, so there's a lot of people giving a lot of stuff to herself. So she's definitely contributing in that way.
To hear about this. Yes.
And so she starts with, you put your whole closet on the bed, and then you go piece by piece, and then you hold it, and then you're like, does it spark joy? No. If not, bye-bye,
Wow.
It's
incredible. I mean, I don't know about if you have this experience, Priscilla, but I have like a handful of things that I wear again and again.
Me too.
Like, I'm in the habit now of renting my show clothes, if you will. Like when I actually my performance, like for a live event or shooting videos like that, I'll rent stuff rather than buy it and only wear it one or two times. And I find that to be more effective to kind of recycle. That's just the one thing that I like to do. But for my everyday wear, I mean, I'm really like living in about the same 5 or 6 outfits all the time.
I know, it's true, right? Or we end up wearing jewelry that tends to be the same ones, or makeup, or whatever, right? I love it. So I love also the concept, going back to role models, right? That there are also role models in philanthropy. You're the first person that comes to mind. You're the one that sparked that I was like, oh, it's actually happening. Oh yeah, I can do it. Like, she's actually doing it at your live event. You brought in, was it the Unstoppable Foundation? I think it was.
Yes. And we're actually sponsoring them again this year. I'm so excited.
Yes, I saw that on the post. So like in part of your event, you bring a speaker up and you invite people to donate. And so as part of your event, there is a little check that's going to go out from the participants to a cause, if they choose, right? They don't have to.
Yeah, nobody has to, but here's the thing that's interesting is that I invite women to come to Limitless Women that actually know that they're here to play a bigger game, and they want those distinctions. And I promise you, for all of us, if you hear something that sounds resonant, try it on a little bit. If it doesn't work for you, your old life is waiting. It's going to be right there, right?
It's true.
Nothing to lose. So just try to expand and try something new. And what we find is, this is our 5th Limitless Women. And we've raised $273,000 to date, which was a huge mind blower for me. And I'm excited because now we're like, okay, what's the next milestone, right? It's a fun game that we're playing. And in the meantime, we're looking at, again, how many different ways can we actually solve problems? How many different ways can we, as women who are on purpose with our lives and our business, create sufficiency and take care of our families first, take care of ourselves first. But the idea that we just need more millions is really a fantasy. We don't need more than we need. We need to really get clear about what it is that we desire and what would have us feel really abundant and full. And then it's like that closet. When the closet is full and you've got it, now if you're blessed to still have more time and resources to share and solve problems for others, how many more things can you create? Most women that I meet specifically who are entrepreneurs are very visionary, very creative. And I love, again, the work that you do to help them get clear, because that's the sweet spot, right? Otherwise, they're like popcorn. Oh, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this, right? We've all kind of fallen in that trap. There's a reason I've had 9 businesses, right? It's like, oh, well, that would be fun. Let's do this. And there's something about, again, getting really on purpose with your work, really clear about who you are and what you're here to do, and to actually have that as an expression for your work is such a beautiful blessing. But when you have that clarity now, if you'll stay in your lane a little bit, you can find whatever level of financial freedom you'd like to have. And again, we've got lots of free resources, so happy to share. Get that financial house in order, and then really use your overflow of time and love and resources to help others. It's a juicy place to live.
Oh, I like that. Oh, it gave me chills.
Yes,
giving from overflow. I'm just writing some notes here as we're talking. I'm not. So I'd love to dive into some ways that we can use from the business standpoint. Let's start with the business, and then if there's just other kind of thoughts on, because as you were talking about Limitless Women, I was thinking, well, what are offers or events or gatherings or things that you're maybe already doing in your business that you can use to to invite people into this different expression of, in this case, giving, right? So you do that with Limitless Women, but so that could be one way. I'll just let you take it from there. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can just tell you a little bit about our business model. So when I created this business, and which I feel like is my legacy business, unless God has another plan for me. I mean, I'm 53 in August, and I'm pretty sure this is what I plan to do for the next 50 years. Again, we'll see what happens. But it's the place of like, how many different ways can we monetize our cause, right? So we look at, as an example, the second book, Limitless Women. All the proceeds from the sale of that book go to charity. We don't really need that. It's not the revenue stream for our company. When we look at our private sector clients, right? So we have people that hire me and that work with our company. They're part of our mastermind, our group of women that are like-minded. They come together and share resources. We have the live event, but then we have the deeper work where somebody's in a consulting program or in a mentorship program for a year. We ask them to take 20% of their consulting fee and donate it to the charity of their choice. It's not for me to say this is the cause, because there's so many beautiful causes out there, right? You could be passionate around animals, you could be passionate around the planet, you could be passionate around children, you could be passionate around education, you can be passionate around hunger, you can be passionate around water. Choose the one that really speaks to you and really have that be your cause. So what we do with ours, and the reason why we do 20%, is that when I started this business, again, this was my 9th company, I have a pretty good idea about how to create systems, build teams, build an organization. And I felt that 20%, if we did our business well, would be a realistic profit margin. And I can tell you, Priscilla, sometimes we have to dip in. Sometimes we're not doing well always at the 80%, but we do well most of the time, right? And then the surplus always shows up. We're always good. But it's that place of like, again, what could you do in your own business? And 20% is very bold. And I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. So I'm not saying that you should start there, but let's say that you wanted to give 1% of your business away. And that was something. Or if that felt still like a little too much of a stretch, let's say that you had a program or an offering, a book, a service that you're providing, a product offering that you're selling, and you said, from this particular product, we're going to give 5%. Right? Find that one place and have it be genuine and authentic and congruent for you, and then tie into a cause that feels congruent with your business. And what I mean by that is that all business is a solution to a problem, right? Somebody's got a problem, a business has a solution, there's an energy exchange, we have business. I challenge you to question that in any industry. In my experience, that's how it goes. So choose a nonprofit to actually like alignment with what it is that you're doing. So our work is really around women, empowering leadership. We love causes that actually provide education for women, that provide opportunities for women to grow, to have their own entrepreneurship. And it's fascinating. One of the nonprofits that we sponsor, the Power of Love Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with Elka, if you've ever met her. So that organization, Scott and I personally sponsor a woman every month because it's $150 a woman can start her own business in Zambia. And what we've seen, because we've actually gone to Africa and visited, is that the repayment is like 97% that these women pay back. And then that money goes into a pool. It doesn't come back to us. It goes into a pool to help educate and further the community of women that are now entrepreneurs. So they have now their own kind of network of sharing resources and sharing ideas. And then they're creating new funding, right? So it's like, choose what feels right and congruent with your work and go in at a level that feels right, but get it in your business model and then automate it. That $150 comes out of my account every month. I'm not saying, oh, I got to go write a check to sponsor a woman. I'm just like, okay, great. We can celebrate. We're sitting at the dinner table having a glass of wine. We can celebrate that a woman started her business this month because we were able to give.
Mm-hmm. So, and that can be, if it's not, I can also think of maybe there's a small amount. Let's say it's $5 or $20,
yes.
It could be a month or it could be a quarter, or I guess it's like $7 or something a month. Whatever can feel like it's an automatic yes as a starting point too,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, let's say that you're in a position where you'd like to sponsor a woman each year. That's fantastic.
There you go.
You really think about that. So what is that, $12.50 a month? If you could get committed to that and that made sense for you, let's go there. Now, here's another thing that's a hidden objection that we haven't talked about yet, which is we're business people. And so we know what it costs to run a business. one of the things that we look at when we're looking for nonprofits to support is we look at their business model. We look at how long they've been in business and how much of the donations that we're making are actually going to the actual source of the problem, where we're trying to solve a problem, and how much is going to administration and running the company. And what we do with small nonprofits is we encourage them to get a benefactor that pays for just the business operations expense as their donation. And a lot of corporate sponsors will do that because they're in business and they understand that you're running a business. And when that happens, then when we make our donations, as an example with the Unstoppable Foundation or Power of Love Foundation, when we make our donations, 100% of our dollars are going right to the causes that we care about, because they've set up a business structure that allows them to take care of the cost of their administration so that we as donors get to give right to the source of the problem.
That is amazing. I love that. Let's just build it in, in a way that feels really fluid and streamlined and effortless. Another way that we chatted about just before we got on a little bit that came to me through a client session yesterday, I think I was telling you, is like a client of mine wrote a book called, I think, Braving the Self. And within the book is kind of a workbook of sorts. I haven't read the book, but helps you kind of brave your shadow and your fears and work through that so you can really step into powerful leadership and live your purpose and whatnot. And it came through for her as part of, an opportunity, an avenue for her to share, in essence, to do her philanthropy is not necessarily through money, but through the sharing of the body of work that she is developing. And so one of the suggestions was, for example, there's the book that can be like a short little virtual course, and actually something that, let's say a little training module where, for example, any organization that resonates with that work, and the people listening can think about your own body of work, or if you have a book or a training program or something simple, maybe it's even a cleanse, I don't know. And so in her case, she can create a little portal, right? And so in her case, her boyfriend, I think I told you, is a retired Marine Corps. Right. I think works with vets, right? Very important cause. They have their own issues, right? And so he was thinking of possibly, bringing initially one-on-one, but maybe in small groups, this body of work to facilitate to people that are, looking to improve themselves. Right. So it's an easy way for her to, it's an avenue, a pathway to help people with the work that you've created. Either it can be a nominal fee, maybe it's a coupon code that some people get for free, and then you train people to share the work without you necessarily having to do it. So it creates that ripple effect, and you're helping without necessarily, and maybe in more ways that you can imagine, without even having to be the money. So maybe your own body of work or your book or whatever can be some way that you're spreading the love, right? So it hadn't occurred to me. Duh.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah, there's so many ways. And I think that I would just encourage anyone who's curious about this conversation to do their own inner discovery. And what I mean by that is really, whatever your path is, if you believe in prayer, if you believe in meditation, if you just need to get out and take a walk in nature and commune and listen to your own inner voice, your own intuition, but pose the question of how can I give? How can I give in a way that's authentic and congruent for my life and my business? And listen for that. It might be something that you ask before you go to sleep. And you might get something really fun in a dream. I don't know how it's going to come through for you, but I know that when we ask better questions, that these ideas that seem sometimes overwhelming or seem over there actually become closer to home for us.
How can I give in a way that's authentic and congruent to my life and business? And sometimes it's just staying in the inquiry a little bit. And also trusting those nudges. It shows
up, right? I mean, we're in this community where we know that if we pay attention, things show up. It's pretty magical. So that's, again, one of the places when we've kind of moved out of that, remembering that we're really not in survival mode. We sometimes feel like we are, but we're really not. We have more than enough. We are more than enough. And when we celebrate what we have, we'll get more of those things that we'd like. If we start paying all of our attention to things that are not serving us, and that don't feel good, we'll get more of those too. So you get to choose, right? It's really what happens for us. And then when we do choose and we start paying attention, there's so much good that's available for us, and I just think, again, it's a fun place to play.
I love that. And I love how you called it a fun game, play. There's an energy of it's fun, it's light, it's juicy, right? It's a good thing to do. So we're getting up to close to the top of the hour. Any other thoughts or insights that you'd like to share, or a resource even?
Well, I'd say that, thank you for inviting me to share a resource. So if anyone is interested in my book, Stop the Spinning, they can get it for free online. It's at laurafreebook.com. So we'll type that out. Laura is how you spell my name, laurafreebook.com. That's one thing that I'd love to share as a resource. And in that book, I talk about really what took me from a childhood. The subtitle is Move from Surviving to Thriving. And, the different distinctions around time, around money, around walking in faith, around seeing synchronicities, and what that looks like with some real life examples in my own life and business. So if that's of service to anyone, I'm so happy to share that. And then the other piece I'd love to say, Priscilla, is that I would encourage anyone who hears this to please be patient with yourself and be really compassionate for the process. I think that we can become our own worst enemies sometimes. It's okay that we feel small sometimes. It's okay that we have limiting beliefs. But when you feel those things, don't beat yourself up more because of that, but just understand that you're doing the best you can today, and you take action and put one foot in front of the other for the next step. That's really, what is the next step that I can do today? I mean, it's really one of my practices in the morning. I wake up, I do my gratitude practice. I give thanks for this body that I woke up in, because didn't have to be here. I'm so happy. I'm grateful for, the fact that I have a roof over my head. I just kind of like thanking everything around. And, as you know, my husband had an emergency quadruple bypass almost 2 years ago. So the fact that he's laying in bed beside me right now is a beautiful blessing. I'll take it every minute that I can have. And, there's a lot to be grateful for. So I start my day with that. And then before I get out of bed, I ask myself, what are the 3 things that I need to do today that are really important for my business? What are the actual distinctions, things I might be procrastinating on, things that I feel like I might be making bigger than they are, but what are the 3 things that I really need to give my attention to today? And I want to get those things done before I do anything else in the workday. When I come out of bed, then I do my yoga and I have my nourishment and I do all my self-care first. But when I sit down, I'm really clear about those 3 things first before I start doing any interaction with other people. And I think that that can be a success principle that's very simple. But if you actually allow yourself to have a win by getting something accomplished that is incomplete, it helps, in my experience, really boost energy and have you feel fantastic about the next possibility. And then you're open for creative. We talked about the closet being clear. Now your life, your space is open for what wants to come in that's creative, because you've handled what you need to get done.
I love that. That's really powerful. So you have a really nourishing morning practice,
Very much so. You'll notice, and this because we've been friends for a while, but like my work day starts at 1 p.m. So a lot of people, think that I only work 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, because that's what my call calendar is open 12 hours a week. But I consider the work that I do in my gratitude practice some of the most important work that I can do as a human being. In order for me to go out as a speaker or bring a message as an author, I have to come from a full place first. Otherwise I don't feel like my message is as clear, as clean as it needs to be.
And it's congruent, right? Because I feel like your gratitude has always been your sense of fullness and generosity, of like really being excited and hungry and full to give, is something I've always felt from you. So there is that congruence, and people feel that. It's all energy, right? We have to, I posted on Facebook yesterday. It's kind of a weird topic. I was like, before you touch your marketing, you wouldn't touch your marketing you wouldn't go out without brushing your teeth. So why would you do your marketing without doing the energetic work first?
Yes. 100%. 100%. Yeah.
And if you're like me, who might resist that, I've noticed myself really coming up against a wall to go deeper into my own inner landscape and connecting with my own soul, which is hilarious given that that's what I do for others.
Right.
It's just, knowing that, connecting to ourselves, clearing our energy, being present, and being that vessel, what Esther Hicks talks about, right? Being that in that receptive mode, right? Which is all what you're talking about. Giving is about overflow, giving, receiving, right? And that starts with energy, inner being, guidance, that bigger invisible world that is there, if you allow it, I guess, or believe in it, whatever that version is for everyone.
Well, I think if somebody wasn't open to that possibility, they wouldn't be on this call.
It's true.
So there's an energetic of that too, I mean, again, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel alone, when we feel like up against the wall, because we all have days and we feel like, how am I going to do this? The solution is to stop saying, how am I going to do this? And instead really look at like, who's around me? And it's the solution is not to stay alone. The solution is to stay connected and to remember that you're really, really guided and supported. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
And you'll get through it, just like you've gotten through everything else, right? You, the collective, we,
yes,
right?
Whatever that day is, tomorrow's another day. And if we're alive and breathing, I'm pretty sure God's not done with us. So you get to have another step in the adventure.
And if I can squeeze a really final question, because you're talking about this, and this is one of the things that I admire in you, that is still a work in progress for me, is staying in faith. Like you always seem to look at the glass, more often at least than not, like half full,
right.
Is it your practice, your spiritual practice, that keeps you there, or just feels good, or better than being
like I'm just a feel good junkie? Yeah. I'm often in awe at the life that I live today, Priscilla. And when I say that, I mean the amount of freedom that I have, which I know is not the case for so many women in the world. The amount of health that I experience, which again, I know is not the case for so many people in the world. The amount of love that I get to experience on a daily basis, the amount of support. I'm more than a little humbled and awed by how great my life is. And I don't mean to say that from an arrogant place, but I just also know, if anybody reads my book and they understand where I came from, to be where I am today is not something that I ever dreamed of as a child, because I really was in survival mode most of the time. I was literally always trying to get by. So I didn't have the foresight to see beyond what I needed to do the next day. So when I say that about having compassion for the process, I feel that we're all in our journey. And from my own experience, I could not have crafted this life. As a mere mortal, I'm really clear that there is someone or something or some power that is so much greater than I am, that loves me so much, that would have me experience life with such fullness. And I do my part to, I believe in the gratitude practice, right? I try to always acknowledge and give reverence for that. But I also know that I'm not any more special than anyone else, other than I'm a redhead, and that's pretty special. I think, we're all, in my belief, divine children of God. I think we're all chosen to be here. And I feel like this is, again, so aligned with your work, because the soul is chosen to come through in this time, in this body, in this experience, with a purpose, with a cause, and having the opportunity to be of service to that and have the adventure of the experience is really such a gift. So I'm just pretty sure somebody way smarter than I am has figured this out, and I get to be along for the ride.
That's so beautiful. And I'm so glad to hear that your husband, Scott, right, is doing well. And
he's terminal, so it's not a great conversation. And at the same time, he, I don't know how much, I don't want to go into a whole long story because you're very familiar with the story, but I can tell you that last night we had dinner with some friends, and Scott was saying that when we lived in Sedona, because that was our home, our family home for so many years, he always joked that he would be taken out of that house in a box. And if we hadn't been called to go to Southern California, if my work hadn't taken me there, and we were still in that little town in the middle of nowhere, he would have been taken out of a box, and it was 2 years ago. So again, just another divine timing, divine dance. And so every day that I get to have with him right now is really, I don't know how long we have, and he doesn't know either, and neither does his doctors. But we're celebrating every day that we do have, because it feels like bonus time to me, Yeah, it feels like extra juicy time that I may not have had in other circumstances. So just another experience for me of being really blessed.
Yes, and staying in the faith and really, being so grateful.
Yeah, enjoying what is.
Well, please send him a big hug from me and all of us that
You'll
listen.
see him. You'll see him at Limitless Women.
I will be there. And for those of you that listening in April 12th through 14th, if you're interested in joining, Limitless Women, I guess there's limitlesswomen.com, and I guess they can reach out to you, I guess, right? And
yeah, certainly, yes.
It's a great group of women. And thank you so much, Laura. Is there a final word or a final thought, or you feel complete?
I feel wonderful. I feel so grateful to you. I can't wait to see you again in person and give you a hug and celebrate with you and get caught up on what's happening. I feel like when you get interviewed, or when I get interviewed, it's like a one-sided story. I want to know all about what's been going on with you as well. So thank you again for your generosity. I'm really honored.
Thank you. So for Laura, her free gift is laurafreebook.com. If you're interested in the event or just what she's more about, limitlesswomen.com or lauragisborne.com. Those will be links that you'll have for me. And remember, there's always priscillastefan.com if you're interested in having that conversation around how to live your purpose through your business in a very deeply aligned way. And thank you so much for this conversation. It continues to give me so much just joy and nourishment, and just that feeling of feeling supported. I just feel like I have little angels here. They just like I can breathe, like I'm not alone. Yes, I can. I matter, right? I can do this. It's good. And the past does not define at all the future. Thank you so much. I will share this with you, and I'll just stop. If you can just stay there for a moment. And bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.